Okay guys, let us now talk about data types in C. We already saw variables and we said each variable must have a data type, which is simply a word that represents the type of value that can be stored in a variable. Now let's see some other common data types we have in C apart from integer. So we already saw the most common one, which is the integer, in the previous section of the video. And we said integers are used to store whole numbers and are represented by the three letters int or int. For example, we can have int and then age to represent the age of a person, and we are going to give this an age of 10. And we can also print this age by using a format specifier %g, and after this I will simply write the name of the variable which I want to be printed or which I want to be displayed in the place of %g. So here I will write my variable name age and with a semicolon at the end of the line. So this is how to use an integer variable in C, and when I run the program we see that our age 10 is displayed. Now another data type we can have in C is the float data type. So int is for storing whole numbers, but float is a data type that is used to store decimal values. It is represented by writing the word float, and then after this I will give the variable name, which can be anything. Like I want my float variable to represent the height of something, so I will name it height, and then I can initialize it to a decimal value. So the float is a data type that stores decimal values of up to 7 decimal places, meaning that after my decimal point I can have 7 digits. Like I will set my height to 1.8, which is a decimal values. As I said, it can take up to 7 decimal places or 7 digits after the decimal points, but I will not do all of that for now, and I will remember my semicolon. Now the format specifier when we want to print a float is, instead of %g I will say %f, and I remember to change the variable name to height also, because it is the name of my float variable. Now I can run this, and now we can see the height is displayed 1.8 with many zeros afterwards. Now we can also specify the number of decimal places we want this float variable to be displayed in. For example, if I want it to be displayed in just 2 decimal places, I will come here after my percentage or between my percentage and f, and then I will say .2 to mean it should be displayed in 2 decimal places only, or I can say .3 for 3 decimal places, and I will run this, and we see it is displayed this time around 1.800, which is 3 decimal places only. After the float we can also have another data type, which is the double. It is written as double, and double is a data type which stores decimal values also, but the difference between double and float is that while float can store decimal values of up to 7 decimal places, double stores decimal values of up to 15 decimal places. So I will say double height, I will give it the same value 1.8 because it is still a decimal value, and then I'm going to print my height this time around. Now the format specifier for double instead of %f is %lf, meaning long float, and I can run this to see the result. Now a shortcut for running your programs if you are using Windows is simply by clicking on the F11 key on your keyboard, which I will do to run my own program. Now we see our value is represented 1.8000 with many zeros, and now with the same way we did with float, by specifying the number of decimal places, I can do same with the double also. For example, if I want this to be in 2 decimal places, after my percentage sign I put .2, and it is going to be in 2 decimal places. Now we can see the value 1.80 is displayed to 2 decimal places only. Now let's see the next data type, which is the char data type. So char is a data type that represents single character values, not just numbers. So a single character can be anything, like any special character like a full stop, an asterisk, a dollar sign, etc. It can even be a single number or letter. So a char data type is declared with the keyword char, and after that we write the variable name like char1, and after that I can set it to any single character value, and this character is supposed to be written within single quotes. Now within the single quotes I will simply write an ampersand. This can be an example of a character that can be stored in a char. So long as it is a single character, it can be anything. Now the format specifier instead of LF is going to be %C, and I should remember to give the correct variable name to be printed. And now we can see that if you run the program, it runs successfully and we are simply displayed our ampersand symbol. Now if you want to have a variable which stores more than just one single character, like it can store a whole name like John, which is more than one character, actually 4 characters, in that case we can use a string. A string is a data type which stores a sequence of characters more than one. As I said, it can be any word or set of words like a person's name, the name of a country or city. Now for a string, we are simply going to use the char data type or the char keyword also, and after that I will give a name like name to show that the variable stores or contains the name of a person, and after the variable name I will have to write a set of square brackets, and inside the square brackets I will write a number like 10 for example. So this number 10 simply represents the maximum number of characters that can be stored inside this particular variable, which is usually important, especially when you don't want to initialize the variable immediately. Now for string variables, we will need to change the single quotes to double quotes also. So single quotes are for single characters, but when it is not a single character, we need to write it within double quotes, and we also write a set of square brackets after the variable name. And within this square brackets, we specify the maximum size of characters that can be stored in this variable. Now the format specifier is going to be %S instead of %C, and I will write the variable name, which is name, in my printf function, and this time around I don't need to write the square brackets afterwards again. The square brackets are attached to the variable name only at the time of its declaration. Now let me run this again and see the result. Now we see our variable name John, which is displayed. In some IDEs also, you will need to import the string library in C before using strings in C. So that is done simply by writing #include. It is similar to including the standard input output library, and then within my angle bracket I will write string.h. So in some compilers you will need to import this library in order to be able to work with strings the way we saw here, but in some other IDEs it is not necessary. You can use strings even without importing it. Now let's see the last data type we are going to see in this video, which is the Boolean data type. So Boolean is a data type that can have only one of 2 values. It can either be true or false and nothing else. And in C, a true value for a Boolean is represented by a 1, while false is represented by a 0. In order to use the Boolean data type, it is obligatory to import the Boolean library. I will change my string library to the Boolean library, which is stdbool, and then .h at the end. So stdbool.h is the library for using booleans in C. So now to declare a boolean variable, we write the keyword bool, and then after that we can write the variable name. The variable name I'm going to give is true. So this variable is simply going to check if our boolean is true or false, and if it is true, I represent it with a 1 and a semicolon at the end. Now the format specifier is going to be %g because booleans are represented with integers, just that the only integers we are allowed to use are 1 and 0. And I will also change the name of the variable to isTrue in my printf message. Now let's run the program and we see 1 is displayed, meaning also we can make this false by writing 0 and it is going to display 0 in our result. Now let's try to give this a value which is not 1 or 0 and see how it will react. We see that the program is still executed, but instead of 4, just 1 has been displayed because 4 is not a recognized value for Boolean data type. So guys, those are the common data types we have in C. There are other data types which we have not seen, but usually these are the common ones which you will often be required to use on a daily basis.